This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, The War Room, Part 9. When we left off, Angela provided Dr. Lopez a PG edited version of all that transpired after her and Q's wedding ceremony, before and during the reception, and they also discussed Michael's feelings regarding all that he discovered about what's going on at home. What they didn't discuss, because Angela has absolutely no way of knowing, is that the very same day that Michael made his discovery, Q, LJ, and their legal teams was sitting down at the jail having a conversation with the DA, two ADAs, the lead federal agent, and the DPD Administrative Division Deputy Chief. Several days have passed, and back in Dallas, Q is riding in the car with Pops Andy and Donovan. They're on their way to the hospital to visit Regina and Mom Brenda. Donovan said, "So bro, tell me, what happened in that room? Cause y'all must have put it down if they let y'all out with all them charges they had on y'all heads." You said, "You had to be there to believe it, bro, but I'll do the best I can to fill you in." Q then told Donovan and Pops Andy all about what went on in that room right up until the DA and the ADA walked out of the room. Then he said, when the three prosecutors walked back in, the DA looked at me and LJ and said, "Let me hear what you got. If it'll lead us to a big fish, then we can talk about getting you guys out of here, if that's appropriate." My lead attorney, Shapiro, said, "Everything that they share today is off the record until we have an immunity deal in writing." The DA said, "Of course." Shapiro gave me the nod, and I said, "A month or so before my wedding, I met with my frat brother, Ronald Hobbs. He's a criminal attorney in the area. We met for lunch to discuss a personal matter. At the end of that discussion, he informed me that Deacon Davis had been released on $500K bail, and that it was unclear of where the funds came from or who guaranteed them, because they were brought in by his attorney. When I told LJ, we started digging into Deacon Davis's past, and it didn't take long for us to figure out that he wasn't just the owner of a trucking company and a deacon at the Salvation Center of Dallas, but we needed help to figure out just how deeply he was involved in all of this. I reached out to my contacts at DPD, and they said that he wasn't a big enough fish, and that he was already on the hook for the assault of my woman and for his involvement with Jada in the case against her. The two of them had used the same drug to drug me and my wife. She was still in jail, unable to post bail, but he was out." Then LJ said, "I tried to get my contacts at the FBI to help, considering that I was on contract work with them. They were more concerned with avoiding the appearance of a conflict of interest because of Pastor Corey's involvement in the Jada and Deacon Davis case." Then I said, "So me and LJ sat down with Pastor Corey and tried to get him to intervene, and he refused, saying that he couldn't risk blowing his cover, and he'd already digged into Deacon Davis's past and didn't find anything." Then the DA asked, "Well, what did y'all find?" Q said, "Well, first we found that Sinclair Davis wasn't born in Florida. He grew up right outside of Sarasota, but he was born in North Carolina. His mother moved him to Florida and changed both of their last names after her husband, Beaumont, was murdered in a raid by the police. She changed their names to Davis and cut off all communication with her deceased husband Beaumont's family. Beaumont and his family were involved in illegal gambling, liquor houses, the drug trade, and flesh peddling. Beaumont was rumored to have an illegitimate older son with one of the women in charge of his ring. That sent up red flags. Women in that business usually aren't allowed to give birth to children unless those children belong to their pimp. So we had an inclination that she and her son were probably going to be the missing piece to this whole little puzzle. Now, when Sinclair's mother moved him to Florida, she thought she had escaped that life. She had no clue what became of Beaumont's love child or his mother. She never even went back to North Carolina because she left with every dime Beaumont had hidden in the house where he had her stashed. Back then, All the money made from ill-gotten gains was kept in cash, and the movers and shakers always stashed the money in the house with their wives. They always kept those houses outside of the area where they put their work down. Their homes would be purchased via legitimate means, usually in the wife's name or a legitimate family member's name, and on paper, the men wouldn't even live there. They knew law enforcement couldn't get no warrant for a house they didn't own or live in, or where no criminal activity was observed. So, as long as Sinclair's mother stayed far away from North Carolina and kept him away from it too, she could keep all the money. Then I said, she left with more than enough money to start a new life, provide a good life for her son, and give him a quality education. She thought that when her son left for college at FAMU, she'd done it. She'd provided him the life that he deserved and kept him out of the game. What she didn't know was the game was inside him. The hustle was in his blood. When we found out that that man went to FAMU, it all clicked. Captain Roderick Arrington was a student at FAMU for 2 of the years that Sinclair Davis was there. And Captain Arrington was from the same town where Sinclair was born. The DA said, but that proves nothing. Q said, exactly. And unfortunately, that's where the connection stopped. So we went back to our contacts at the FBI, at DPD, Pastor Corey, showed them what we had, and they still refused to help us. LJ said, so we spent the next 2 years digging and digging until we finally uncovered the truth. Deacon Davis's mother had no idea when she wrote those checks for her son to go to FAMU that she was sending him into the belly of the beast. He didn't just meet another young man who grew up in the same city that he was born in. He made that man his mentor and closest confidant and his partner in crime because that man was his brother. The DA said, but his last name is Arrington. What makes you think? LJ said, yeah, his last name is Arrington, but Sinclair's last name is Davis. They still got the same daddy. Let me finish, man. All it took was for us to pull Arrington's birth certificate from public records. Once we had his mother's name, all we had to do was give it to Ron. Q said, Ron was able to legally get her criminal record unsealed back in North Carolina. And we then knew immediately that she was the mother of Beaumont's illegitimate son, because she was the only woman that Beaumont bailed out of jail over and over again for S work. And then when Beaumont died, his younger brother Ace took over where he left off, bailing her out of jail 20 times. LJ said not only did Ace start bailing Arrington's mother out of jail, but he also started running the family business. Then the DA asked, why would Sinclair Davis move to Texas if the family business was being run out of North Carolina? Q said, because Ace Newport's son lived in Texas, because his goal was to expand the family business from the east to the west coast, because Sinclair owns a trucking company, because a criminal enterprise at that scale needs more than one base of operations. Then the federal agent said, LJ looked at him and said, exactly. Roderick Arrington moved back home after his mother died of an overdose. He joined the force and had his mother's records sealed. Then I said, and Sinclair Davis started a trucking company. Together, the two brothers devised a scheme of epic proportions, and they successfully took the family to new heights. They expanded the family's ability to move illegal pharmaceuticals and human beings around and across the country using Sinclair's legitimate banking, real estate, big pharma, and other business connections. They were also able to traffic narcotics onto college campuses all over the country using Roderick Arrington's legal connections. They were able to stay under the radar because neither of them carried the Newport name. And they were successful because they had the benefit of the Newport family's illegitimate criminal connections. The DA said, I still don't understand why Deacon Sinclair Davis chose Dallas. Q said, a couple of reasons. Number one, he knew that his college friend and frat brother, Pastor Corey, was going to be pastoring a church here, and he was going to need an armor bearer and ministerial support. The other reason was because he was going to need law enforcement protection. The deputy chief said, "Hold on, wait a minute. Nobody in my department was..." Q interrupted him and said, "We told you that Ace Newport had a son that lived in Texas. Are you telling me that you don't remember our Officer Newport? He ate his gun a little over 2 years ago. His wife, LJ, and I sat down with you to discuss the situation. You don't remember that either?" The DA looked at the DPD Administrative Division Deputy Chief and just shook his head. It was at that moment he knew that they had effed up. Then LJ said, "Deuce Newport was dirty, stupid. Captain Roderick Arrington didn't have one man on the outside, he had three. Deacon Davis didn't pull $500,000 out of his behind. He hired one of the best criminal attorneys in the country, and he been running circles around y'all for over 2 years. And Deuce didn't off himself because his wife left him and took his son. He ate his gun because whatever he had in that safe was evidence, and it was gone. And so was his wife and son. Somebody gave him an ultimatum, and he chose. You want a big fish? Find Tracey Newport and Tre. And I guarantee you'll find Deuce's father and Davis and Arrington's uncle, Ace Newport." Then I said, "Hell, let us out of here and we'll find them and hand them to you on a silver platter like we handed you every damn thing else." And LJ said, "Either way, let us the hell out of here. My wife is out there trying to recover from being terrorized. And this could have all been avoided if y'all would have just listened to us 2.5 years ago." LJ slammed his cuffed hands on the table and I said, "We never interfered in your investigations. We told you to let us know how we could help. We stayed out of your way and did our own investigations. We did what needed to be done. And as a result, we found this man's wife and his sister. We handed you multiple felons, all associated with one another and affiliated with the Newport crime family. The men my mother shot in my parents' home the day that my house went up in flames. The men captured on surveillance video entering my home where my wife and children were. The men who went in LJ's house and kidnapped his wife and went in Rennie's condo, kidnapped her, and killed her roommate were all associates and affiliated with the Newport crime family." Then LJ said, "The man that his sister-in-law shot when she was run off the road that same day, and the men that were found holding my wife hostage were all associates and affiliated with the Newport crime family. Do you see a connection yet?" After several moments of silence, Jeffrey Weinstein asked, "How much more do you need to know? These men have dinner plans." The DA said, "The FBI seized a server from your firm. As of yet, they're unable to crack the code to get in it. Is the evidence to support the information that you've provided me today on that server?" Then LJ and I just stared at that nigga. The DA looked at the ADAs and the lead federal investigator and the deputy chief over at DPD. Then he looked at our attorneys and said, "Can you have them and the evidence in my office at 9 a.m.? Then Donovan said, "Oh, so y'all niggas think y'all big time now. Let me find out." Q said, "Hell nah. I just want to bring my wife and my children home. Angela's pregnant."